The transport settled onto the iron-red platform with a sound like a restrained growl. Heat shimmered around the landing struts, and the air of the frontier outpost carried the sharp scent of ozone, metal, and fear. This place existed for one purpose only: to remind the galaxy what happened to those who challenged humanity and lost. The father stepped down first. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and unarmed, which unsettled the guards more than if he had carried a rifle. His face was lined not by age, but by memory. Battles survived, decisions made, lives weighed and spent. He had once commanded fleets. Now he commanded silence simply by standing still. 2 children followed him. They were smaller, slim, dressed in simple dark clothing that bore no insignia. Their eyes moved constantly, not with nervousness, but with attention. Where other children flinched from the sight of cages and chains, these 2 only observed. They stayed close to the father, not clinging, but aligned with him, like extensions of his will. "These are the wards," the outpost commander said, forcing confidence into his voice. "The ones you insisted on bringing." "They choose," the father replied calmly. The commander hesitated, then nodded. The rules had already been bent enough to allow this meeting. Breaking them further no longer seemed impossible. The containment hall opened before them, vast and brutally illuminated. Rows of reinforced cages lined the chamber, each holding something that had once been called an enemy. The galaxy's deadliest species were represented here in flesh and bone, restrained by human engineering and human certainty. An alien slammed itself against the bars of its enclosure, roaring, its restraints glowing white-hot as they absorbed the force. Another hissed in a language long ago translated and dismissed as lies. One curled in on itself, broken, whispering pleas to gods that no longer answered. The children watched them all. None of it impressed them. "The selection must be made," the commander said, gesturing down the line. "One will be removed for final processing. A demonstration. The others will remember." The father did not respond. He was watching the children. They moved slowly along the cages, stopping briefly at each. Sometimes they tilted their heads. Sometimes they exchanged a glance. They never spoke. Their faces remained composed, unreadable, as if they were listening to something beyond sound. Then they stopped. At the far end of the hall stood a cage, set apart from the others. Its occupant was larger than most, bound by multiple layers of restraint. Heavy chains crossed his torso and limbs, anchored into the floor itself. Energy suppressors pulsed faintly along the metal, tuned to a frequency meant to crush resistance before it could form. The alien did not move. He did not snarl or beg. He did not strain against the chains. He stood upright, his posture rigid, his gaze fixed not on the guards or the weapons, but on the children. There was no hatred in his eyes. There was recognition. The children raised their hands in unison and pointed. "That one," they said. The words echoed more loudly than the alarms ever had. The father froze. For the first time since stepping onto the platform, his composure fractured. His breath caught, shallow and sharp, and his eyes locked onto the chained alien with an intensity that startled everyone in the hall. The commander noticed that changed immediately. "You know him," the commander said carefully. The father did not answer. Memories surged without permission. Smoke-filled skies. A battlefield littered with human dead where there should have been none left alive. A moment, long ago, when annihilation had been inevitable, and then, inexplicably, it had not come. The father had never known why. Until now. The alien shifted slightly, just enough for the chains to tighten and hum in warning. His eyes never left the father's face. He inclined his head a fraction, not in submission, but acknowledgement. The children felt it too. Whatever had drawn them here was stronger now, clearer. This was not a predator waiting to strike. This was something restrained far beyond necessity, not because it was uncontrollable, but because it was inconvenient. The commander cleared his throat. "That one is classified. He's dangerous." "They're all dangerous," the father said quietly. "Yes," the commander agreed. "But that one doesn't break. Doesn't rage. Doesn't beg. We don't know what he's waiting for." The father finally moved. One step forward, then another. Each footfall seemed to tighten the tension in the room. Guards shifted their grips on their weapons, uncertain whether they were witnessing mercy or madness. The children stayed where they were, hands still lowered now, choice already made. The father stopped a short distance from the cage, close enough to see the scars beneath the alien's restraints, close enough to feel the weight of a past he had never truly laid to rest. "So," the commander said, forcing a thin smile, "is this acceptable? Shall we proceed?" The father did not look back at him. "No," he said. The word was soft, but it landed like a weapon. A murmur spread through the hall. Procedures did not include refusal. Demonstrations did not pause for reconsideration. Yet no one spoke over the father, because every soldier present knew who he was and what it meant when he chose a hill to stand on. The alien's gaze sharpened, curiosity flickering where resignation had been. The children stepped closer to the father, their presence steady and unafraid. "You wanted a choice," the father continued, his voice carrying now, controlled and deliberate. "You have one. But understand this, if you force my hand, this outpost will remember today for reasons you won't like." Silence followed. The central conflict had crystallized, unavoidable and alive. A single chained alien, two children who saw what others could not, and a father standing between humanity's reputation and its conscience. The alien remained still. The father did not move, and the galaxy, unknowingly, held its breath. The hall did not empty after the father's refusal. It only grew quieter, as if the outpost itself were waiting to see who would speak next. Guards remained at their posts, weapons lowered but ready, eyes flicking between the father, the children, and the chained alien. Authority still existed here, but certainty had cracked. The father turned away from the cage and knelt in front of the children. Up close, their calm was more unsettling than fear would have been. Their pupils tracked movement with precision, not distraction. They were not staring past the moment. They were fully inside it. "Tell me," the father said, keeping his voice low, "why that one?" The children did not answer immediately. They never rushed words, because words mattered. When the first spoke, his tone was steady, almost gentle. "He isn't loud." The father frowned slightly. "Silence isn't innocence." "No," the second child agreed. "But his silence is holding something back, not hiding something." The father absorbed that without comment. He had taught them to speak carefully, to explain what they sensed rather than what they assumed. Whatever they had perceived had survived that internal filter. "What do you feel?" he asked. "Weight," the first child said. "Not strength. Responsibility." The second nodded. He remembers choosing. "That's why the chains are tighter." The father closed his eyes for a brief moment. The words struck deeper than the children could have known. He straightened and stood, turning back toward the cage. The alien watched him with an intensity that bordered on restraint itself, as though even eye contact were an act requiring control. The commander stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sir, whatever they think they sense, this creature belongs to a species that burned human worlds. Millions died." "I know," the father said. "You were there," the commander pressed. "Yes," the father replied. "That's why I'm still standing." The alien shifted again, slow and deliberate. The chains responded instantly, energy rippling along their length. A warning. The alien stopped moving, compliance immediate. It was not fear that halted him. It was calculation. The father noticed. "You," the father said, addressing the alien directly. "Look at them." The alien's gaze dropped to the children. For the first time, something flickered across his expression. Surprise, restrained quickly, but not quickly enough. The children met his eyes without hesitation. "He sees us," the first child said quietly. "He recognizes us," the second added. The commander stiffened. "That's impossible." "No," the father said. "It's inconvenient." The father stepped closer to the cage, just beyond the marked boundary that guards were trained never to cross. A few shifted uneasily, but did not intervene. He could feel the hum of the suppressors vibrating through the floor, a constant pressure meant to dominate anything standing within their field. "Why are you still alive?" the father asked. The alien did not answer at once. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, roughened by disuse, but controlled with effort. "Because I did not finish what I was ordered to begin." The word struck the hall like a controlled detonation. The commander opened his mouth, then closed it again, reassessing everything he thought he knew. The father's jaw tightened. "And what was that?" "Extermination," the alien said. "Total. Irreversible." The children did not react. They already knew. "Why didn't you?" the father asked. The alien's gaze returned to him. "Because you resisted when it made no sense to do so. Because you chose tactics that sacrificed advantage to save the wounded. Because your species retreats only when retreat means survival, not surrender." The father felt the past align into a single, terrible clarity. The battle. The sudden withdrawal. The moment humanity should have been erased and wasn't. "You spared us," the father said. "I delayed the inevitable," the alien replied. "Or so I believed." The commander took a step back, his certainty draining away. "This changes nothing," he said weakly. "He's still a threat." "Yes," the father agreed. "So are we." The children shifted their attention back to the father. "If you kill him," one said, "you erase the proof." "Proof of what?" the commander demanded. "That monsters can stop," the second child replied. "And that chains don't make them safer. They only make us simpler." The father exhaled slowly. This was the heart of it. Not mercy for an alien. Not guilt for a past spared. But the question that had haunted every war he had ever fought: what did survival cost, and when did it stop being worth paying? Alarms began to pulse softly along the walls, not in warning, but in anticipation. Timetables did not wait for philosophy. Somewhere deeper in the outpost, protocols were aligning to reclaim control. The father straightened, his decision not yet spoken, but no longer distant. "Prepare a secure holding transfer," he said to the commander. "No execution. No demonstrations." The commander stared at him. "And if High Command refuses?" The father met his gaze, without flinching. "Then they'll have to remember who taught them how to win." The alien watched this exchange in silence, something like guarded hope forming beneath his composure. The children stepped closer to the cage, unafraid, their presence steady. For the first time since his capture, the alien allowed himself a single unguarded breath. The chains held, but the future no longer felt as certain as they once had. The transfer never came. Instead, the outpost sealed itself in layers of protocol and hesitation. Orders were sent, rescinded, then rewritten in language so careful it said nothing at all. Time stretched, heavy and uncertain, while the chained alien remained where he was, watched more closely now than before. Fear had shifted direction. The father returned alone. He dismissed the guards from the inner perimeter with a glance and a single raised hand. They obeyed, retreating to the edges of the hall, unwilling to be close but unwilling to leave. The children remained beyond the boundary, still and attentive, as if distance did nothing to weaken their understanding. The father stopped in front of the cage. Up close, the alien was even more imposing, his frame built for violence that had never fully been unleashed. Scars traced his skin in patterns of survival, not conquest. The chains bit deep, suppressors humming steadily, but his posture remained upright, controlled by will rather than force. "You knew they would choose you," the father said. "Yes," the alien replied. "I hoped. Hope is dangerous. So is certainty." The father studied him in silence. He had faced warlords, tyrants, creatures bred for annihilation. None of them had looked at him like this, without challenge, without submission, only expectation. "You could have escaped," the father said. "You let yourself be taken." "I allowed myself to be displayed," the alien corrected. "If I ran, your kind would only remember what I was. Chained, you were forced to look at what I refused to become." The father's hands clenched briefly at his sides. "You let them call you a monster." "They needed one," the alien said. "And I needed to see if you still did." The father exhaled slowly. You spared us once. I spared your potential, the alien said. You are dangerous because you adapt. Because you argue with your own orders. Because you hesitate when logic says you shouldn't. The children's words echoed in the father's mind. He stopped. He chose responsibility. And your kind punished you for that, the father said. Yes. The alien's voice did not harden. It softened, almost imperceptibly. Choice is contagious. My commanders feared that more than defeat. The father looked back toward the children. They met his gaze, unwavering. They were not afraid of this being, because they understood something the galaxy refused to accept. Restraint was not weakness. It was discipline at its highest cost. You think freeing you redeems something, the father said. It doesn't. I know, the alien replied. This is not about redemption. Then what is it about? The alien's eyes lifted, meeting the father's fully now. Definition. The words settled between them with uncomfortable precision. You define yourselves by what you destroy, the alien continued. By what you endure. But you have not yet decided what you protect when protection costs you everything. The father felt the weight of command press against his chest. He had ordered strikes knowing civilians would die. He had justified it every time with survival. But survival was a blunt instrument. It never asked who you became afterward. If I release you, the father said, they will call it betrayal. Yes. They will say humanity is divided. Yes. They will come for you. For us. The alien inclined his head. Also yes. The father's mouth tightened. You're asking me to gamble the future of my species. The alien's gaze flicked briefly to the children. No. I am asking you to listen to the ones who already are. Silence followed. The hum of the suppressors filled the space where certainty used to live. The father turned and walked a slow circle around the cage, taking in every restraint, every safeguard designed to erase autonomy. He stopped at the control node embedded in the floor, its interface sealed behind layered authorization. Do you regret it? The father asked without turning back. The alien did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice carried something new, gravity without bitterness. No, he said, because when they look at me, your children do not see an enemy. That alone was worth everything taken from me. The father closed his eyes. A warning tone sounded softly across the hall. Not an alarm, an incoming presence. External signatures aligning just beyond the outpost's perimeter. Forces that did not care about nuance or choice. Forces that would interpret hesitation as weakness. The father opened his eyes. You will not leave this place as a prisoner, he said. The alien's breath hitched, barely. And, as what then? The father placed his hand against the control seal, feeling the system recognize him, resist, then yield. As proof, he said. One they won't be able to ignore. The chains did not release. Not yet. But the meaning of them had changed, and the galaxy was about to learn the difference. The first impact tremor rippled through the outpost before the alarms could rise to full volume. Structural lights shifted from white to red, and the air filled with the distant thunder of mass drivers locking into position. The external forces had arrived sooner than diplomacy ever would. The father did not look up. He withdrew his hand from the control seal and turned to the children. They stood exactly where he had left them, calm amid the rising chaos, their focus unbroken. Stay here, he said. They did not argue. They never did. Trust was not something they practiced. It was something they inhabited. The commander's voice crackled over the intercom, strained but controlled. Multiple hostile signatures confirmed. They're broadcasting demands. Of course they are, the father said quietly. He faced the cage once more. The alien watched the tremors in the floor, the shifting guards, the rising tension, and understood the shape of what was coming. They believe you are weak, the alien said. They always do, the father replied. Another tremor struck, closer this time. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin lines, like marks on a ledger finally being filled. The father reached for the control seal again, this time with intent that carried no hesitation. Listen carefully, he said to the alien. I will remove the restraints. Not because I trust you. The alien inclined his head slightly. Because you trust yourselves. Yes. The father keyed in the final authorization. The suppressors powered down in stages, each one releasing with a controlled discharge that echoed through the hall. Chains slackened, then fell away piece by piece, crashing against the floor with the sound of something ancient being laid to rest. The alien staggered once, adjusting to the sudden return of strength, then straightened, taller than any human present, unbound at last. The guards raised their weapons instinctively. Stand down, the father ordered. They did. The alien did not move toward the exit. He did not move at all. He simply stood there, free, waiting. The children stepped forward. For a heartbeat, the galaxy balanced on that moment. A freed weapon. Two unafraid humans. A choice that could not be taken back. The alien lowered himself to one knee. Not in surrender. In acknowledgement. The external forces breached the outer perimeter moments later. Their presence flooded the sensors, aggressive and absolute. They did not open with communication. They opened with fire. The father turned, already issuing commands. Defensive grid, pattern delta. Do not pursue. Hold. Humanity's response was immediate, disciplined, devastatingly precise. Not a wild counterattack. Not a panicked retaliation. Every movement was measured, every strike calculated to stop, not annihilate. The alien watched with something like awe. You fight differently than they expect, he said. We always have, the father replied. That's why we're still here. A transmission cut through the chaos, forced onto every channel. An alien voice, sharp with certainty, filled the hall. Surrender the traitor. We will leave your structures intact. The father stepped forward, his image broadcast outward without embellishment. No armor. No weapons. Just a human standing where the galaxy could see him. No, he said. The word carried farther than any threat. We will not trade conscience for convenience, the father continued. We will not execute what we do not fear. And we will not become predictable to make you comfortable. Silence followed. Not confusion, calculation. The alien stepped beside the father, fully visible now. The chains lay broken at his feet, undeniable evidence of a choice already made. You taught them well, the alien said softly. I didn't, the father replied. They taught me. The children stood behind them, small and unyielding, witnesses to a moment that would echo far beyond this outpost. The hostile forces withdrew first, not in retreat, but in reconsideration. They had come prepared for cruelty, for desperation, for easy narrative. They had not come prepared for restraint backed by overwhelming competence. The alarm softened. The red lights dimmed. The outpost still stood. The commander approached slowly, uncertainty etched into every line of his face. This will have consequences. Yes, the father said, but they'll be ours. The alien turned his gaze outward, toward a future no longer defined by chains or commands. What happens now? The father considered the question, then answered honestly. Now, the galaxy learns why humans are feared. Because you are violent? The alien asked. The father shook his head. Because when we can destroy, he said, we decide not to. The outpost doors opened, light spilling in where shadows had ruled. The father walked forward, the children at his side, and the alien beside them, not as a weapon, not as a symbol, but as proof. Behind them, the broken chains remained on the floor. Ahead of them, the story was only beginning.